Hi there guys, this is Max from makeitconscious.com. I hope you're all doing well today. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the fourth habit in the 7 individuation habits, which is to contribute your unique and specific value to the world. So following on from habit 3, which was skillful communication, we're firmly now in the conduct section of the 7 habits. And so habit 4 is a large part of how we choose to behave and act in the world. And it's really all about livelihood, how we contribute our value to the world around us. Now, contribution is a vital part of human life. Because we exist essentially in separation from the world, there's always an interplay, there's always things we need from the world, there's things we take and are given, even at a basic level. We need shelter, food, we need resources. And it would simply not be possible to have the world unless there was also a give, unless there were people giving. And in response to this, we, broadly speaking, have 3 options. We can either attempt to do nothing and hope that we can live off the generosity of other beings in this world. The second is to work and do so in a way that meets the expectations of the world. So in other words, abiding by a pre-existing need. And the third way is habit 4, is to contribute your unique and specific value to the world. And in some ways, this is a lovely representation of the individuation process in its entirety, because what's really happening here is we are choosing to work from the inside out rather than simply meet the expectations from the outside, whether they be real or perceived. And that's a great metaphor for the individuation process generally, because it's about bringing forth our potential, the self with a capital S, and thus making the unconscious conscious as part of that. And so our livelihood in a way can be thought of as a kind of spiritual practice, or at least that's a very useful way to view it, in my opinion. Because as much as we would love to just know our unique set of facts straight away and go out there and start contributing those in a specific way, it's very unlikely that's going to happen from the get-go. Go to school, leave school at the first opportunity, and then immediately fall into something that is both unique and specific. Now, that is what happens to some people, but for the vast majority of us, trying a number of different careers and livelihoods is actually an invaluable part of discovering who we are. So as much as it is a process of contributing our unique and specific value, this is also a way of actually making the unconscious conscious as well. So it's an absolutely vital part of the path, just like any other habit. So as I said, it's about starting with an inside-out approach. And the common route for people who haven't yet broken through to taking responsibility for their mind and making decisions to let go of conditioned ego reactions, a typical route is to follow the corporate career or the 3-stage life, this kind of thing. And if you've ever worked in these environments, you will understand very well that you are a bit like a cog in a machine. You're very easily replaceable. And any sense of purpose we might attain through this role is something that can be just swapped out. And so it's actually quite difficult to attain a sense of purpose if we're doing a job like that, unless, of course, we abide by or we have more influence, and actually the company is an expression of us as opposed to something we are trying to fit ourselves into. So there's nothing wrong or bad about corporate work at all. It's just that where we are in our particular point in human history, and in most industries, a lot of industries are declining, and so they're sort of begging and clawing for their next innovation. And there are, of course, many exceptions to this, which I discuss regularly, but a lot of the traditional industries like telecoms and oil and gas and transportation, they're kind of scraping the barrel in terms of innovation. So there's less potential for creativity, and thus there is more direct head-to-head competition. And so the habit 4 mindset is really about taking a creative mindset as opposed to a competitive mindset. Now, of course, there's always going to be other entities doing things that are similar to what you do, but when you adopt a creative mindset, you neither regard those people as competition because they're your friends, like they are pushing the same set of benefits as you. Not the same, but they are within the same remit, and in that sense, you're actually cooperating. So, for example, in life coaching and therapy and all these things, and anyone who talks about Jung, I'd welcome the opportunity to engage and cooperate with any of these people. There's absolutely no competition there because working from the inside out, there's no one else that can be you. So in abiding by your unique set of facts, competition just flies out the window. And at the same time, it is important to apply that in a specific sense. So if we understand who we are and know ourselves, that in itself is quite it's a very, very lengthy, arduous task, one that's worth every moment. And there's ways and tools that can help you with that, such as the Myers-Briggs and Jungian type profiling systems are all exceptionally useful tools as a way of doing that, particularly when done with the help of a coach. But that said, you also need to apply yourself in a specific way to the society you happen to find yourself in and via the niche that works for you, or combination of niches. And so one concept that can guide us here is this idea of the long tail. This is the idea that basically the number of interests, or literally the number of search results that someone might search, are just ever expanding. No longer are a group of friends likely to necessarily just form purely around the fact they grew up together in the same place and they all go to the same pub, but actually it might be they all share an interest in something quite niche, like, for example, cryptocurrency technical analysis or equestrian Tai Chi, and niche down even more. I mean, even those two that I mentioned are have potential to be drilled down into even further. So the modern world provides just an ever-expanding range of opportunities for us to experiment, to know more about ourselves, and to apply our value in a specific way. And so it's really important that we both understand our own unique set of facts and apply that in a specific way that does not only meet a need, but actually carves out its own need in the world as it's configured today. And so there's a meeting of opposites here, because some people are very drawn to raw authenticity, just simply being themselves. I think of like a stereotypical artist who just paints what they want to paint and just provides the rawest expression of their own conscious and unconscious minds. And then on the opposite end, think of someone who is naturally drawn to just raw effectiveness, like they are master system builders. Well, it's not about being attached to either of those extremes. In order to apply our specific value and our unique set of facts, we actually have to marry these extremes. So it's very much an integration of the opposites, a middle way. And so these are two key points I'd like you to keep in mind. And like with all habits, there's also a third point here. And the third key point to bear in mind under habit 4 is this: take every opportunity to give. Right? Habit 4 doesn't merely start when one decides to move towards integration or when one is what I might consider a highly integrated person. No, like contribution occurs at every stage along the way. It doesn't have to be something grand either. Your unique set of facts and your specific opportunity to contribute might come down to the fact that you just happen to be in a certain place at a certain time. Like perhaps you're walking around a city in a developing country and you happen to be carrying a piece of bread that you don't particularly want to eat. Well, you come across someone who maybe has a need for the bread, you give it to them. It's really simple things like this. And all good things come from contribution in this way. So not only is this producing extremely favourable results in the world, but it's also working on our own mind. And neither of those two sides of this coin are more useful or more important than the other. both are absolutely essential. And again, I might suggest it's actually a kind of middle way between the two, because if we are giving reactively, let's say that we are watching television and there's a particular advert that appears, and it's a very emotive advert, and there's a starving child in a sub-Saharan African country, and as terrible and tragic as that might be, if we give because we experience or we project our sadness into this image and then just give impulsively on that basis, and we haven't really vetted that route, we don't know anything about the charity, we don't know how much of the money goes to this child, and we're associating the need with that particular child we've seen, and actually that might not even be an accurate representation of what's going on. It certainly won't be the same child, and that's not really the point, but emotively we might be trying to push that particular button. So in other words, there's the unconscious involved in this instance, and despite all the, let's call it impulsive generosity that we all maybe feel drawn to from time to time, these problems still exist in the world. And so there is a need for effectiveness in our giving, and there's many charities that are doing fantastic work, and there are even organisations like GiveWell, like effectivealtruism.org, whose entire purpose is to determine what is the most effective use of our resources to doing good in the world with the best information available that we have. So that is super important. But at the same time, working on our own mind, this taking an opportunity to give, this actually works on the unwholesome root of craving that we discussed in previous habits, in the first 3 habits. This desire to just grasp what makes us feel good, and also the aversion to push away things that give us pain. Well, if we practice generosity, we're actually working on these unwholesome roots in our own mind. And so it's not merely a transaction, it is absolutely about our practice and the impact on our own mind and in making the unconscious conscious. So I'm going to wrap that video up there. There's loads more that could be said about this, which I will certainly be writing about and making more videos about in future. But just to summarize, habit 4 is to contribute your unique and specific value to the world. And 3 key points associated with habit 4 are to know your unique set of facts, contribute your specific value, and take every opportunity to give. I hope that was useful, guys. I shall chat to you next time.